I used to do a lot of sailing ships, but as the market changed over the years, like I said, White Star lines, White Star steam, White Star mining, shipping, aircraft. We used to do a lot of steam pressed wood. A lot of my aircraft, you can carve a thing, but we actually did steam pressed wood where you'd take a flat panel of wood and you would take this big steam press and it would be flat wood, and then you take this big steam press and it goes and then the steam gets turned off, and then you turn on the heat, and it just goes, and then it kind of like cooks the wood, and when you get done, you'd get this perfectly molded piece of wood that, like I said, you could take a flat board, like say like those cabinets back there, and with steam and heat, what you do is you go and you like wet the wood and then slowly press it over time, and you go and the wood would slowly bend into the mold. Like if you want to create like you can even create like this glass shape practically, or like a molded piece of wood, like a fender of a car. You go and then at a certain point you turn off the steam, and then you'd click and then they would flip a switch, and then electricity would heat up the metal, and it'd sit there and it'd just bake the item. And when they were done, you'd have a perfectly molded piece of wood that's like rounded or any shape you want. You could even do compound bends practically. They could bend the wood in 3 different directions. So it'd be like, it'd all be curved and stuff. So it'd be like you actually bend a fender out of you take a straight piece of wood and make a fender out of it. Wooden fender. Curved, rounded, everything. Compound bends. Wood would do it all. You could do compound bends. You could do everything using a steam press, and then heat, and then you would bake it into the shape. It takes about like 7 hours or 8 hours or 12 hours to actually bend a fender, though, because you have to wet the wood, you have to heat it up, and then you'd have to press it into the shape you wanted. But when you're done, you'd have a wood pressed piece of wood fender from a flat board practically. Anyway, so we used to do that a lot. We used to make all wood cars that were basically steam pressed wood cars. Anyway, so I had all this lumber and stuff because it was cheaper and easier than and then with some lead paint or whatever, to preserve. You could drive that car. You could drive that wood pressed thing with some leaded paint. You could take that car through the mud. You can take it through the water. The wood would never warp. It'd be fine. So that's what we used the leaded paint for and stuff like that. It was a 2-coat process. We used this undercoat, and then you'd put the leaded paint on top, and then it wouldn't peel off, and the lead would stop the water from getting to the wood. So you could drive it through the rain. You could drive it. You could drive it anywhere. And it was a 2-coat process. There was a sticky. There was this other kind of paint that you put on, and then that keeps the lead from peeling off. And it was this complicated process, but we built lots of cars that were solid wood cars, steam pressed wood, and they would last about 5 or 15 years just fine. And so I had these huge lumber mills, and I was sawing wood and creating these cars. And it was easier to build cars out of wood than it was to build them out of metal, because metal took so long to actually get a substantial amount of wood. I mean metal. So there was all these cars that were mostly wood. And then with a metal engine or steam or whatever, because metal was extremely expensive back in the day. So that's what I used the big old steam presses, and you could do compound bends on fenders and all kinds of stuff. And so it's Lusifer White Star lines, cars and manufacturing, steam pressed wood, whatever you want, in any shape you want. So we did that a lot back in the day. And then as steel got more and more better and stuff, because in the old days, wood was way better than steel. I mean, wood would last longer. Wood wouldn't flake apart. Wood, if it wasn't a wooden car, you didn't want it, because it would just crack. It would just rust anyway. And with a leaded paint and the 2-coat paint process, they lasted like 36 years, no problem. You know, as long as you kept the moisture away from the wood, it lasted pretty good. So, and they use big steam presses for that. So that was where my bread and butter was from. I mean, my money was from, was that. I mean, we used wood a lot back in the day. I mean, wood was the best stuff. I mean, it didn't rust, it didn't flake. You know, it only split if it got wet. So we could do some really thin woods that were like some old trees and stuff. Anyway, we used to use wood a lot back in the day, and I was really big back then, you know, and stuff like that. And then later on, as the years go on, we get more and more metal and better metal, and the business becomes metal. So anyway, though, but back in the day, yeah, we used a lot of wood. So and that's why White Star Lines, White Star Timber Company, um, you know, titanium saw blades, stuff like that. We did a lot of that, and wooden ships and stuff like that. So anyway, yeah, that's why I still have, there's like Star Lumber, White Star Pine, you know, Louisiana. I had my food places, and that's what I did, you know, back then. And that was like probably a couple thousand years ago. I don't know. Anyway, though, but yeah, had quite a big business. You know, big old trees and stuff like that. It takes like 1,000 years or something like that. And the hardwoods and the redwoods, and made quite a bit of money, and actually had quite a few people working for me, living with me basically. And you know, I mean, the trees need a good environment to grow and all that. So anyway, and then we used air seeding and stuff like that to do that kind of stuff. And yeah, so I'm Lusifer White Star, and you know, my companies are still out there. I mean, my mining, my shipping, aircraft, Louis, Lusitania Airbuses, and the Lusitania Airbus went with the Lusitania ships, and they used to be just prop planes, and then later on we got jets and stuff like that, and you know, I hired a team to go over it and stuff, and use my pilots and stuff. Also, like American Airlines, TWA, that kind of stuff. You know, was one of my companies. So you know, I had my companies, you know, flying all over. So anyway. And I had like my farming in Louisiana because it was a big old, you know, I think it was a mining thing, and then we added some started to get plants to grow in it, because you know, it was basically the overflow from one of my mines, you know, so it's this big like muddy flats, and plants would grow in it pretty well. So we started doing crops, wheat crops and corn crops in Louisiana. And Louisiana is LU, not LO. I don't know why they put the O in there. Because it stands for Lucifer. Anyway, though, but yeah, because I owned it, it was my farm. And then, and also, like, I mean, like, opium plant is also mine. It's a white flower. And there's also stuff, you know, cocaine, you know, is also mine. You know, a lot of my stuff, and a lot of my, anyway, like LSD, you know, I named it after me, Lucifer Star, you know, LSD or whatever, drug, drug. LSD stands for Lucifer Star drug, and stuff like that, you know, because it was a hallucinogenic plant that one of my tribes had found or had or created, I don't know. So anyway, there's a lot of things out there, and then we refined it more, so. Anyway, though, but yeah, you know, it's basically where I'm pretty much the center of the universe. And, well, I mean, I was very successful and had a lot of cars. And also, you know, a lot of the stuff I invented and did led to, like, buildings like that and stuff. And you know, I mean, it's all my people, you know, we were having a population problem. And I was like, well, let's go up. You know, let's just build higher. You know, so we started, like, with the Empire State Building and everything else like that. And started building these big columns, you know, and stuff like that. You know, started somewhere around Rome, you know, and also like waterways, you know, improving waterways. You know, we didn't always have these great big rivers and stuff, so we like consolidated rivers and consolidated and like just built, you know, and made bigger, deeper channels, you know, because you know, you can usually go out deeper, you know, and stuff. And plus all the mine overflow, you know, there's a lot of silt coming from the mines because, you know, you crush up the rock, you know, and then they have these big silt things, and it's like, well, now what do you do with it? And it's like, well, wet it up, grow in it. I don't know.